In this film, we're giving you a free exclusive glimpse into our session at Bluebell Lakes, which was shot the back end of the summer. Very, very busy complex where we turned up on the gate, no favours asked or granted, and we went in cold like everybody else and tried to feel our way around the complex, trying to find which lake we wanted to fish on, and then of course trying to find some carp to fish for. It's all shot live as the clock is ticking away over a 48-hour period, and it will give you a real insight into what it takes to make it work on a really busy 𝗖𝗃𝗲𝗿𝗃 complex when you're faced with some of the biggest and best carp in the country. No excuses from people saying, oh, you get swims roped off or turn up and it's pre-baited. None of that rubbish. What we do in this film can be done by anybody, and we prove it in real terms from when you get on the gate to when you pack your nets up nice and wet and slimy at the end of the session. So come and join us on this little journey. It's one of my favourite films and you can watch it here completely free. For this Carp Academy in-session feature, you join us at the extremely famous, renowned and highly respected 𝗖𝗃𝗲𝗿𝗃 complex, Bluebell Lakes. There are numerous lakes on site, all got 40-pound plus fish in them. Some of them have got 50-pound plus fish in them, and two of the lakes have produced 60-pound carp in the past. So it's going to be a challenge. I've got no track record on here. I don't know the lakes. I don't know how they fish. I've not come prepared with loads of information. I know 𝗪𝗲𝗍𝗵𝗀 on mallard, and apart from that, that's it. The couple of sessions I did on swan, which I blanked, I tried hard, but didn't quite crack the formula. So it's a bit of a risque session this, you know. I could crash burning in flames very, very easily, but it's real life carp fishing. We've got no roped off swims, we've got no special favours granted. We got here when the gate opened at 7 o'clock this morning. I've already done a good lap around one of the lakes, and that's what we're going to continue doing until we can hopefully get ourselves in a position where we can have a crack at some of these amazing carp. And that is the cornerstone of all successful or potentially successful carp fishing. You have to get yourselves in the right position from the get-go. So this is where it starts. The session here right now, ground zero. We're going to go off, we're going to search maybe the whole complex if we need to give ourselves a chance, and then we're going to try and crack one of these bluebell carp. So this is my third lap of Mallard Lake this morning. Not settled on fishing mallard, but I wanted to do a good recce while the fish were showing. And as soon as the gates opened at 7 o'clock, I was straight in and came for a good look round. Now, I have seen fish showing along this bank. They seem to be moving a little bit on the wind across me, but there are fish out in front of here at 50, 60 yards sort of range. So very, very good starting point. Obviously, it's a hugely busy complex, so the 𝗖𝗃𝗲𝗿𝗃𝗃 mentality's got to come in. And if you find somewhere that looks half likely, no, not half likely. If you find somewhere that looks likely, you need to get in there. They have a very good system here. It's a bucket operation. There's no booking of swims, which is something I really don't like. But on here, you just drop your bucket. They give you a sticker and you're allowed to bucket a swim for an hour or two to get yourself sorted. So this is looking very, very likely. I just want to have a look a bit further down. Make sure they're not flushing across on the wind. Never be in a rush to make your decisions. You want to make the very best decision you can, because trust me, believe me, the entire success of your session is hinging on that first decision that you make. I've had another wander about, and there are fish in other areas, and there are other areas that look a lot better than this. But, you know, it is totally stitched up. But this gets us reasonably close to where we need to be, and we have seen fish out in front of here. The only thing that's vexing me a little bit is I haven't seen any fish in the last 15 minutes or so, and as I said earlier, I'm a bit worried they may have been transitioning across the lake. I don't know the lake, I don't know what they're doing or how they behave, but it did seem like they were edging across bit by bit. So I'm going to put roots down here for 10 minutes, have another good look, probably longer than 10 minutes actually, and then if it's not really screaming out to me, we're going to have a little walk around the complex, maybe have a look at 𝗪𝗵𝗏 Lake over the road, because no matter what happens, I want to get myself ready for tonight in as near on nailed on a position as I can get, where it only needs the fish not to feed or for me to screw it up to cause a blank. Everything else needs to be covered, and that means being very close to a good number of fish, and that's what we're striving towards. So you might not see any fishing at all today, you might just be seeing the soles of my boots and lots of leg work, but that's it. That's the name of the game as far as I'm concerned, and I'll do everything that I can to try and get us a good chance of catching one tonight or tomorrow. One of the biggest mistakes that people make these days is being in too much of a rush, and modern life, the pace of modern life, families, work and everything is such a juggle to keep everything, all the balls in the air, that when we go fishing we think, right, if we've got 24 hours, if we have our rods out for 23 hours and 55 minutes of that, then we've made the most of our time. And it's a false economy, totally false economy, because if you are not in the right spot, then you've wasted everything anyway. And that's valuable time that you could have been put into good use somewhere else in your life perhaps, or certainly in a swim that had carp in it. So I'm never in a rush to get set up. I'm never in a rush just to try and get a bite. I mean, right now it's July. The weather over the last few days has been British record breaking, literally in terms of temperature peaks. And the water temperature is close to 30 degrees itself. And I'm thinking probably the best chance for a bite on this session, if we're going to get one, is going to be either first light tomorrow or first light after our second night. So I'm prepared to play a bit of a longer game. Obviously there's people coming and going all the time. It's a supremely busy complex, but there are always people leaving. You know, a lot of people think, oh, it's so busy. They just have this vision of people arriving all the time, but there's obviously two-way traffic. And I think there'll be an opportunity. I've just got to work hard at finding it, not being too much of an impatient rush, and keep assessing strategically as I go. Well, I've been up since 4:30. It's gone 10 o'clock now, and just come back to the van for a bit of a recharge. Just realised I've not eaten or drunk anything, and we need to keep the enthusiasm and the energy at top level. So quick cereal bar, good few gobfuls of water, and we'll be off again. I'm not really getting a buzz for mallard at the moment. That might change, but we're going to have a little look around some of the other lakes on the complex, starting with the very nice sand martin just over the way there. So as soon as I've had this, we're off again. There's definitely been some early morning feeding going on here, back of the wind, but this is clear. Another one's rolled over there. This is clearly where the fish, I should say, this is clearly where the weed is thickest on the lake. It's the only part where it reaches the surface, and it's one of my nailed on carp angling locational rules. There are no rules really, because the fish are wild animals and they always break the rules, but wherever the weed is thickest, summer or winter, 99.9% of the time there's another carp. You'll find the fish, and yeah, it's starting to look like we might be able to make an opportunity out of this. I can see a little corridor in the weed that they keep using. Yeah, I like the look of this a lot. But you're looking for that first sign that's going to get you to put roots down in an area and look at the water, and search for that second sign when something that might have been random becomes a pattern. That's when the second domino falls. We saw a fish that made a stop. We saw a bit of fizzing. We saw an agitated coot, which led to us seeing another carp. And it's clear that because we saw the first sign that made us stop, there's a bit going on in this corner. However, there is an angler just to the right. He's putting out a marker float and he's fishing the area, you know, within his boundary, but he's not casting across the front of me. But, you know, I'm sure we could probably do without each other. I mean, I'd only fish straight in front of here, and it's my water, but day ticket lakes do feel a bit crowded sometimes. So even though there's fish in the area, I'm not sure we're going to take it. We've got another guy setting up behind us. So I'm just going to watch and study. Probably go and have a chat with matey and check that he'd be okay if I was to come in here, and take it from there. Okay, we are 6 hours into the session, and we made a choice on swim, which is one we looked at earlier. It's on the lake called Sand Martin. We've checked out every lake on the complex except Kingfisher, because that's been fishing well. I think pretty much every peg on there is taken, so I'm not really interested in mixing it in there just with 2 nights at my disposal. I've just done another lap of mallard to make sure that that first swim that I put tabs onto didn't have them throwing themselves out wholesale, but not so, as I suspected, the fish had shuffled well to the left and it's very stitched up there, can't get near them. So retreated back to here, and actually it seems to be game on. There are fish showing out in front of here. Short distance, there's fish moving through the weed, and a really nice guy next door called Pepe just caught a 28-pound common. So yeah, I don't like going in between anglers, but we're nowhere near anyone else's water. I spoke to mate who's fishing in the corner. We can fish directly in front of here without any disturbance, without causing anyone any problems. Don't like being in corners between anglers, but there's fish here. We just got to work out how to catch them. So I'm going to get the gear out of the van and we're going to get into this session. Okay, so I've got a bit of gear in the swim. It's time to get a rod out with braid on it, a spod rod with a little light lead. I'm going to flick that around. It's clearly very, very weedy. See if I can locate some areas of fishable bottom where I've seen the fish roll. We've seen a couple more in the last half an hour, and in fact everything that has shown, there's probably about 5 in total now, have all been in the same area, which is perfect because they're the first areas I'm going to investigate with a little light lead to see if it's presentable bottom there. Okay, we've got the first rod in position, and the longer I'm sitting here, the happier I am with the swim at the moment. We've managed to get ourselves on what looks like a reasonable number of fish. They're obviously loving this weed around here, and as I keep saying, weed is a magnet for carp. It's a bit of a repellent for carp anglers, but carp love it, and wherever the weed is thickest is where I will usually look first. So I've placed a rod in the edge, and seen a few fish travelling through close, and a little donk with just a light lead on the end of the braid. And it's quite handy doing it like that because you can locate areas of clear bottom just, you know, off the rod tip by going along. You can locate craters, sometimes high points, and you can, if you want, you can take a measurement of the depth of water if you want to make sure it's out of swan depth. By when the lead's on the bottom, just wind the tip of the rod down till it's touching the film, the surface of the water, and then lift the whole thing out, and you can see how deep it is as well. Generally for swan depth you want it to be in excess of 3.5 foot if they're really big. I reckon that's probably in about 3.5 foot, but there's no swans around, so I'm waffling on needlessly anyway. But anyway, got the rod sorted. We've dapped a little bit of bait over the top. I've put in a little light running in line on a short little leader, and I've got a braided hook link with a little piece of krill boilie on the bend of or on the hair I should say, of a small but strong little hook, which is barbless as per regulations here at Bluebell, and I've hand sharpened it within 1 inch of its life, and yeah, it looks good. I've baited it by using the little thing I call dapping, which is using the spod. So after I've donked with the bare lead, I know exactly the arm extension length and in line with what tree on the far bank where it's nicest. I then lift it out, unclip the lead, clip on the spod, and you can just let it's stealth baiting. You know, it's more stealthy than a bait boat. So I put a bit of that down with some a bit of chopped krill active, a bit of freshly cooked hemp, and a little bit of bloodworm pellet mixed in there. But not a lot of bait, just 1.5 spods, so a couple of handfuls I suppose in totality. And I've slackened the line off, and I've got that down there on a single pair of rod rests, and that's in position. So my next job now, apart from having some lunch because I'm getting proper hangry, is to try and find out what I've got in front of me where the fish have been rolling just over that perimeter of that weed. So I'm going to flick a lead around, see what we've got, and yeah, I'm quite happy with this bit of real estate. So I flick the lead out. First couple of casts have shown that beyond the perimeter of weed it is deep, silty and clear. So I'm going to cast it around a little bit more in case there's anything of significant interest. If there isn't, I'm just going to fish it by eye and just cast some simple rigs over the weed, bait it with a catapult. But I'm going to do a couple more casts just in case there is something really notable. There's a nice big patch of fizz come up where I was just casting, and a fish just rolled to the right. There's ripples coming out of the bay. It's looking tasty.
I found a lovely bit of bottom just the other side of this band of weed where the leg goes down with a really good hard crack. Can detect the faintest tremble of like pea shingle down there as well, so it looks like it's been polished off. It's not crisp, but it's hard and it's clean. So it looks like we might have a spot for another rod. Well, there you go guys, I've just found a second spot, same sort of range. And as you can see, I'm winding in constantly through this weed bed, and it's just coming through as if I'm winding in through open water, thanks to this really streamlined setup that I've got on here. And it's a lot more delicate. It's like dissecting the swim with a scalpel rather than a rusty battle axe. You can feel so much more. It's delicate, it's tactile, and in a few short casts, I've found 2 spots that I'm very, very happy with. Now I'm just going to have a quick sanity check, as I always do, and then I'm going to get a couple of rods sorted out.
What a take.
Well, curled himself into a green ball of silky slime. Look at that for a tench. Dorsal up. That's a male as well. Big, big male. Nearly pulled the rod in. It's not a carp, but if you can catch tench from any lake, you can catch carp. And he fell to that tiny little piece of boilie on a soft little braid rig. We're going to get it back in position, see if there's any carp about. Cheers, mate. Okay, we've got 3 rods out angling. I've moved one where I caught the tench. I've moved that out into deeper water because the majority of the fish that we're seeing, almost all of them that are rolling, are out past the weed in that deeper water. So that's where I need all my rods. I didn't want to waste a third of my potential, you know, 1 of 3 rods speculating. You know, it was near to some fish that were tenting in the weed a little bit, and it did that tench bite, and it's a great spot, and I'm going to keep baiting it. But I think for now I need all 3 rods out where the majority of the action is going on. So for that tench I put in a mixture of fresh hemp seed, and that was mixed with a little bit of sticky bloodworm pellets, the little tiny 2.3mm ones, and some broken up sticky krill, the 𝗖𝗿 active. And didn't put in an awful lot, just did it by dapping and then lowered the rig over the top, and the hair carried a little cube of krill, just straight bottom bait on the hair. Very basic, little size 8, short little link, and then inline lead. After catching that tench, as I said, I think that rod would be better use, or better put to use, further out in the deeper water. So I've got all 3 out where I'm seeing the better fish moving. So I'm not going to completely sack off that tench spot. I'm going to carry on baiting it little and often, but I'm now going to bait it with a few whole boilies, because I do suspect there might be the odd carp travelling through. We've seen a couple show close. So I just baited it with 20 baits by hand, and I'm going to keep doing that, just keep trickling a little bit of bait in just to keep that bit of attraction in the area. As I said, I've moved that rod now that did the tench further out into the deeper water, and it's fishing the same as the other 2 rods. I'm not really into trying to find something that's going to work. I'm very happy with my bait and my rigs, and although I don't know this lake, I'm confident that it's a good enough starting point to go in, and we'll see what happens. I don't want to try a different bait here or a PVA bag there, or, you know, you can disappear in a bit of whirlwind of confusion. I've got good quality bait, I've got sharp hooks, I've got rigs that work well for me, and they're exactly where I've seen fish. 9 times out of 10 that will be enough. So certainly for the first 24 hours, that's what I'm going to stick with. That's the game plan. What I have done, bearing in mind these lakes are very, very pressured, it's likely that I'm fishing over spots that do get fished, you know, because although I like to think I'm good at finding little holes in the weed and so on, you know, so are loads of other people. So I could be fishing spots that get fished a little bit. I'm about 8 wraps out past the weed, and 2 of the spots are really fine little pea shingle, and they're really, really nice. But I thought, you know, if I'm going to fish these spots, I need to fish them in a different way. So first thing that I've done that's different, just a straight boilie. You know, I'm a big fan of that, an actual boilie, give them what they're eating on the hook. So no frills, nothing bright, nothing chemical, nothing popped up, nothing wafty, lightweight, anything like that. Straight boilie attached to the hook. And then what I've done over and above that is bait very, very lightly. and in a very subtle way. So I've used my good old 𝗲𝗍𝗄𝗃𝗍 rocket, which as you can see has seen much better days. I'm dreading the day that I lose this fella. I just repaired him again a couple of weeks ago, and oh, cheers for that. Put a new bit of nose in the foam in the nose, I should say. Yeah, he's on his last legs, but he's one of my favourite weapons, and you can't get him anymore. It's a proper edge. If you fancy something like this, we used to make them out of 𝗪𝗏𝗿𝗃 tubes, and if I lose this, that's probably what I'll do next. But 𝗲𝗍𝗄𝗃 rockets have got a place because they're very, very quiet. They're very stealthy. You would have seen when I was baiting up with that, I can put just a small amount of 𝗲𝗍𝗄𝗃s directly over the top without the noise of a 𝗲𝗏𝗄𝗃 or a 𝗵𝗏, which, you know, can make quite a racket, particularly at such short range. You've got to get them to go in on the nose to open, and at, you know, 8 raps distance, you know, it's difficult to do that without causing a bit of turmoil. With this fella, I can just cast it out, I can land it on its side, it'll invert and just drop a little column of 𝗲𝗍𝗄𝗃s on top of the rig. I have baited very, very lightly. I've got 21 baits over one rod and 14 over the other two, which is more than enough to elicit a response from a passing fish without necessarily arousing any suspicion that there is a trap or a baited area, in inverted commas, because, you know, a lot of people, when they go to these day ticket type lakes, they can't help but lay out the banquet. You know, they put out the marker float and then they will bait it heavily, because the common perception in carp fishing is that the more bait you use, the more fish you're going to catch. And most people, when they come to these sort of lakes, are intending to catch multiple numbers of fish. I'm not. I'm just looking to catch one to begin with. That's all I want to do, is just get one bite. And, you know, a handful of bait on a spot is more than enough to catch a fish. If I catch one, then I can assess it, put a bit more on and try and build the spot. I'm using the krill active bait, which is wrapped in a very attractive dissolvable paste. So even after the baits have been eaten, should I catch a fish, there is a nice smell and residue in that area. And I do find that if I just keep applying small amounts of bait to the same spot again and again, you can build up an awful lot of attraction from that dissolved crumb that's gone into the silt and the stones and the surrounding bit of bottom. So that's the plan. It might not work. As I say, I've never fished this lake. I've never caught a fish from Bluebell lakes at all. It's all a bit of a gamble, but I'm going in with what I know, which is sharp hooks, good quality bait, on clean, presentable spots, exactly where I've seen fish. Let's see if it works. Well guys, this is really, really exciting carp fishing. Just out beyond where we're fishing, in the open water where it's deep, we're getting some really big fish just sliding out, big black triangles where there's heads are coming up. This is as good as it gets. Loads of weed, clear water, big black fish. Looks good for a bite at some point, but have I got the tactics right for a lake? I don't know, and I've never fished, I don't know, but I'm confident at the moment in what I'm doing. First night's going to be the most important one in terms of finding out whether I'm doing it right or wrong. Moreover, not quite the first night, but first light tomorrow. I think that's going to be prime time, sort of 5 AM through to about 8 AM. We'll see. But right now, mega exciting. I'm going to cook myself a bit of dinner. Been up since 𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗿 this morning, so starting to feel a bit lagged now, but really buzzing. Had fish roll really close to all 3 of the rods. I've been dotting a few baits with the catapult, just match style, little and often, you know, like 10 baits every 20 minutes, just in an area where you can't really cast to them because of the weed. But I've seen a couple of real good ones show in that area, and I always think it's a good idea to feed fish a little bit of your bait in areas where you can't fish for them, because the more they get used to eating your bait and nothing bad happening, then the more they'll be on the lookout for it. That's the plan anyway. There's quite a lot of activity around the swim. Some of it's tench, but some of it's carp. We've seen some big black-hulled ones coming out as well. Decided to bait this rod a little bit heavier, just in case they're up for a feed. I'm going to keep the other 2 light, but I've just put the rocket out again with another 7 baits, and then I'll use that as a float just to catapult another 20 baits around it. And yeah, probably got another hour or so till it gets dark. Full of excitement for the night to come. Just, you know, it's a blank canvas, isn't it? It's a lake you've never fished, place you've never caught from before, and there's big black carp rolling around a weedy swim. It's about as exciting as it gets. What a start to the day. Most magnificent of dawns, and Ian, my reliable super duper cameraman, said to me, what time do you fancy a bite? And I said 5:45 on weedy lakes like this, clear weedy lakes with big black old fish. First light in the height of summer is very often, well, always your best chance, your best opportunity for the day. I would say generally between about 4:30 up to about 8:30, that's your key window. And when the weather's really, really hot, that window may not come round again until the following day, 24 hours later. That's typical high summer fishing. But anyway, the first bite came earlier than I thought, at 5 a.m. and just before my alarm was due to go off, and I had an epic battle in the weed. Well, not epic, it was a solid battle. The fish, obviously, I didn't let it go too far. Bit of a bizarre netting. Eventually, I just leant on him. He came out of the weed, and he came in close, and he came up on top of a bit of weed next to me and just sat there, and I sort of had to manoeuvre the net under him. So it was a bit unorthodox, but a fish, absolutely banging black common, probably, we'll get him out in a minute, but he's probably mid-double. He looks awesome, properly nailed, and that's it. You know, when you get that first bite on a session, it's a massive, massive buzz. When you get the first bite, when you've got the pressure of cameras and trying to produce, and you're filming and you're work fishing, it's even more of a release. And you know, when it comes good like that, it is such an enormous buzz. Whilst I was just netting that fish or trying to get it into the net, the other rod's gone. So I quickly secured the fish, ran over. That fish weeded me up solid. I used two types of drop-off system on my leads, which I'll show you later. I was using the heavier one, and in both cases the lead hadn't come off, and I think that caused me problems. So I've changed to a lighter one, which should release a lot earlier, which I need in this thick weed. But anyway, the other fish weeded me up solid, and it's just a matter, when a fish weeds you up, stick the butt of the rod in your groin, maintain a good solid steady test curve, and wait. And eventually you should feel the fish kick. When you feel it kick, just slowly walk backwards. Don't lower the rod to gain line and pump it in, because every time you lower the rod, the fish can bore in. Just keep that test curve and just walk backwards, and you can usually walk the fish out of the weed. As it was, I didn't walk the fish out of the weed. I walked the fish and the weed out of the weed and brought in this huge, enormous amount of weed. I couldn't even lift it. So testament to super strong gear that I got it in. And that common is a fair bit bigger than the first one. So we're 2 fish to the good, first morning. As you can probably tell, I am buzzing like a pylon in a rain. We've been blessed by the carp gods. What a common that is. Look at his tail. His fins are old and gnarly, his tail's wrinkled and crinkled. His mouth is black and spotless. He's definitely not a friendly visitor to the bank. I think I like it here. The first job to do after the fish was secured was to get the rods back out. All 3 rods redone, because I think I had a tension currents on the middle rod. Just lightly baited, and we're back in the game. But I've got a real tail fetish in carp fishing, and this fish is what I call tail porn. Look at that, great big shovel, wrinkled with age. Don't care how big they are, I really don't. That is just an exceptional fish. Thank you, San Martin. With big bulky fish, as you probably would have seen me do before, I always put a sling underneath the net. I don't like to carry them in the net because damage can occur with big heavy ones. And I never ever carry them in the net with a rig still attached, because swivels and hook points and so on can get caught and they can cause injury to the fish. In both cases, I've removed the rig, got it out of the way beforehand, and this fella's just lying quietly down there. I'm going to collapse the net into the sling and carry him to the mat. How about that for a fabulous bit of bluebell, old common. Stock pond mouths, all of them. Amazing fish, absolutely incredible. Such pressured venue. It's testament to good management and barbless hooks, I guess, but they are like stock pond mouths, and joined to black old warm warrior bodies. Lovely. 21.5 this fella went. Amazing little short tail, small tail, Nice big solid dumpy body. I'm not even sure this fella's had a spawn. All that leg work, all those hours looking yesterday to get in the right position. Vindicated. So we're coming up on about 8 AM now, and there's still fish in the area. Still looks good, but this time of year you feel your bite time is dissipating the more that morning period, those golden few hours are drifting by. You get an extension when you've got a thick cloud like we have here today. Usually the general rule is the higher and brighter that sun gets, then the quicker it will kill off any feeding activity, generally speaking. But yeah, it still looks good for something to happen. There are fish in the area. It's got a little bit quieter since I did the rechucks, as expected really. You don't really want to be doing 2 or 3 rods right on that key bite time. You want everything quiet, but we had no choice. Obviously we wanted to get the rods back out and see if we could get another one. So the tactics that I've chosen have worked. The fish do like boilies on here. And I say that because it's tempered with a little bit of, you need to feel your way into things, and having a bit of knowledge on a water can be of use. You know, it's the height of summer and a lot of waters right now are particle orientated. I knew nothing about this lake, so I wasn't sure. So it's worth mentioning that if we had got to about this time without a bite, then I'd be starting to think about reassessing tactics. Maybe switching to smaller bait feed like the mix we made yesterday of the crushed krill active and the hemp seed and a few pellets, putting a bit of that in the spod, putting that over the spots, maybe fishing a little bag of crumb over the top. We haven't needed to, because what we've chosen to do as our first port of call has worked, and hopefully it'll work again. But you know, we've still got tonight to play for, and first light tomorrow morning. We've only done one night, and we're 2 fish to the good, which on a new lake that you've never fished before, I'll take that every time. And to have it with fish of that quality, that stunning pedigree, has just like capped it off. So we're going into the first full day in the swim now. Bearing in mind we didn't get in here and get fishing until late afternoon yesterday. So this is the first full day, and I'm not really sure what to expect. You know, it's a learning curve, but they're eating the bait. And what I am doing is I'm catapulting a few boilies out into areas that I can't fish that are not too far away, but areas where the weed's really thick, and I'm just letting the fish have a bit of free bait, and they're rolling in that area and they're fizzing in that area and clearly eating that bait. And it might seem a bit odd putting bait where you can't fish, but my mindset is very much that the more of these krill active boilies the fish get to eat, the happier they're going to be, the more confident they're going to be, and of course the more greedy hopefully they're going to get. Well, the only thing going on at the moment is furiously scrapping coots. They love a ruck, don't they? You get 2 of them fighting and then all the others come over and join in, and it's gang warfare. Well, the bite time, as I would suggest, has passed now. We're coming into the late morning phase, and usually on weedy, clear lakes, you know, as I said earlier, it's done and dusted by the time that morning phase has finished. But there are fish still in the area. There's not as much, nowhere near the activity we've been seeing, but there are little pockets of fizz coming up and bits of movement in the weed and a bit of nervous bird life every now and again. And I think when the fish have been active as these fish have been, you'll always get a lull. And you know, they were rolling through the evening, through the night at first light, and you know, they've been on it. Now they're having a little nap. They put the shutters down for a few hours, and I'm not really expecting anything to happen until the evening. I'm expecting to see some fish maybe this afternoon, but I think right now the fish are just having a break. You know, they're not going to continually be super active, vaunting themselves out of the water and so on. So yeah, you can feel that everything's in a bit of a lull. There are bits of fizz still coming up. Some of those will be tench, but some will be carp. So all I'm going to do is just keep a close eye on things, and I'm going to keep decorating the area in specific areas where I've seen fish fizzing, and where I've seen them roll, where I've frequently seen activity, I'm just going to keep dotting the area with, you know, literally 2, 3, 4 baits every quarter of an hour or so. And the bird life forces you to bait like a matchman, which is quite a good thing, you know. You put out more than 3 boilies and the seagulls are on you screaming like ravenous hordes, and I immediately stop when they come over, because they will get everything, and once they get a taste for it, they will not leave you alone. So as I put 2 or 3 baits out, birds come over, I stop, have a break, wait 10 minutes, put a couple more baits out. It's not a lot of bait, but what I'm trying to do is put it into areas near where I'm fishing, but not where I'm fishing, or maybe behind where I'm fishing, so the fish get used to eating it, get used to enjoying the experience. You know, it's fantastic quality bait. The more they eat of it without anything bad happening, the more they're going to want to find it. So I'm just going to keep doing that on and off throughout the day, and probably get my head down for a little nap in a little while myself, because I'm getting a bit of a foggy head. Only had about 3 hours sleep last night, and even less than that the night before when we were planning on getting up here, because I had the usual pre-session carp angling insomnia, full of excitement, trepidation, anticipation. What lake are you going to end up on? Are you going to be able to get in a situation? What's going to happen? You know, all those preponderances. But we know now, we know where we're at, and we may have to move. You know, it could have gone quiet because the fish have moved off, but at the moment I'm happy they're still about, but they're just having a quiet phase. So we'll look at it as the day goes on. I've got a few other little edges that I'm going to show you as well, and let's hope the carp god send us one more carp. That would be awesome. Just after saying it didn't look good for anything to happen, one of the rods has just gone. Shows what I know, doesn't it? So I'm just trying to walk him out of that weed, try and keep him moving. Well, the hardest part of the battle has been won. We just need the rest of this to go our way. Just by steady, patient pressure, not ridiculous pressure, just enough. Just lean on the fish, put the rod in your groin and maintain pressure, and eventually they do kick out almost every time. I've now got him in this clear little channel in front of me now. Hopefully we can get him in the net, but again, so just a bit of side strain. If he starts charging towards that weed there, and there's a lot of it, just a bit of side strain to keep him out. There we go, you can see he's just turned on the edge of it. He's quite determined to get in there. A fit fish, but this pressure should begin to tell. Nice big oily swirl. Well, I haven't really seen it yet. I've no idea how big it is, but he's certainly putting a good account of himself. It could be a good one. Very hard to tell. No, it's not. It's a mirror. Not particularly big, but I do not care. I just want him in the net now. You can see the lead's come off nicely. Bit of side strain to bring him back away from that weed. Never panic, make sure your clutch is set. I've got a set clutch, but I am back winding with this fish because I'm using fluorocarbon, and lots of clutch action will twist it terribly. So when I'm using fluoro, I do use the black backwind a lot more. But should the fish go on a real quick surge, the clutch is also set. Absolutely the bollocks. I love carp fishing like you wouldn't imagine. Well, say hello to Bubba Gump, the carp with a bottom lip just made for a rig. Absolutely brilliant. He's going to flip. No, he's not. Massive, great shovel tail. You can see why he led me on a fair old dance, proper battle to get this guy in. 𝗍𝗃 pounds. Immaculate, beautiful, first mirror of the trip, first bluebell mirror that I've ever caught. Proper happy, thick across the shoulders, angry. Well, things are coming together very nicely, far better than I could have hoped for. And this guy coming right at the time when I thought, you know, the carp are having a nap, I better get my head down soon as well. The quietest part of the day, hardly any activity, just the odd bit of fizz. Maybe that's a good thing. Out of the blue, the bite from hell. Well, it really was a super aggressive take. I fish with very sternly set clutches for all my fishing, particularly in thick weed, and still this guy managed to pretty much flat rob me. But everything was secure and he didn't go very far at all. And we won the battle. He's got a cool tail, this one as well. Proper pleased. Well, I had a tiny little indication on the bobbin on this pair here, and it happened again a couple of minutes later, just a little movement on the head, and I thought there's probably a tench on there, or a bream, or maybe a big roach or something. So I lifted up and it was solid straight away. I'm only fishing a short way out, maximum sensitivity. I think whatever is on the end must have been sat next to a clump of weed, and he's just literally moved and put his head in it, and it's given me virtually no indication whatsoever. Didn't obviously take any line, nothing of any meaningful description. It was only because I had a couple of bleeps and I came and sat and I looked at the bobbin and it just moved a tiny bit. So there is a fish on the end, probably a tench, but there's every chance it could be a carp, very wily one. And I've tried my usual sustained pressure, and this one is not moving. There's a bit of fizz where the fish is, where it's stuck, fizz coming out of the weed. But he wasn't moving. I didn't want to put too much pressure. Obviously, I don't want to lean on the fish too much, but I gave it as much as I thought my tackle would allow me to safely. And stood like that for a good 10 minutes or more, 15 minutes, nothing's happened. So I've reverted to plan of action 2, which is to keep the line tight. Obviously this is a barbless hook water, so I don't want to slacken off. So I've kept the line tight. I've dropped the bite alarm down so that the line is cutting through lower. And it's all tight, bobbin's back on, high sensitivity. We're just going to wait and see if anything moves. If it doesn't, I'll probably try my first method again. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to go and ask the bailiffs if there's a boat available, because there's some very big fish in here and we don't want to risk losing anything. But I have had tench do this. I had one do it at my syndicate last year. Went out in the boat, life jacket on, out in the boat, mountains of weed, got hold of the line, slowly hand lined it up, big ball of weed, and in the middle was this little tiny tench. So they are capable of doing it. We'll play the long game. Like with this whole carp fishing thing, you know, it's important to maintain focus and patience. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, they're the next 2 course of actions. Give it another pull. If not, we'll try and get a boat. Well, a lost fish is always hard to take and leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, but we did everything we could, and I have to commend the management at Bluebell for having a boat available. You know, you just make a phone call or go in the office, and within 5 minutes there was a bailiff here with a boat. And I think in modern times, most carp lakes are weedy, or certainly a lot of lakes are weedy. And carp love weed, I love weed, I prefer weedy lakes. All you need to do is make sure that in the event that a fish does get locked up, there's a boat available. So if you're a fishery manager and you've got a weedy lake, have a boat and a life jacket available. Really, it's so important, because that fish, whatever it was, it may have been a tench, was so deeply buried, which is still remarkable to me, because it didn't at any point even take enough line to pull the bobbin up to the rod. I am fishing very close to the weed, so he's obviously just took a I don't think he's quickly darted into the weed either, because the lead hadn't come off, which didn't help matters. So I think it was a very slow, I think it was probably a crafty big female tench. The male tench bolt off like a bat out of hell. It might have been a carp, but I don't think it was, but we'll never know. But great management to have a boat available. We tried everything over the course of about probably a good hour, hour and a half, like just pressure and then back on the rod rest. But yeah, even when I was out in the boat directly over it, it was very hard to get it up. Anyway, where I'm fishing is obviously over a wall of weed. I'm about 3 or 4 rod lengths beyond that wall of weed, and having seen it from the boat now, I think you'd be very lucky to get fish in without making some amendments to how you're fishing. I noticed in the rules that there's a minimum of 12-pound breaking strain line here at Bluebell. I would suggest, if you're coming to Bluebell, 15-pound line. And talking about line, diameter is the most important thing. So different manufacturers will ratify lines with different breaking strains. Some manufacturers won't even test it. It will just be from a factory somewhere with 15 on it. You know, it's completely arbitrary. The best way to know that you've got a line suitable for weedy conditions like this is to go by diameter, and for this sort of fishing you don't want anything less than 0.40 millimeters. So just under 0.5 millimeter of thickness, 0.40. Most 12-pound lines are 0.35 or something like that, but this is serious jungle warfare out here. So I've had to make a couple of amendments. I changed my leg clip system on the helicopter setup this morning from the thicker C clip to the thinner one so that it would drop off more easily. And I've also changed my rod setup. Whereas I was fishing with my rods up high with a semi-direct line, I like a bit of belly in the line. Because I've got fluorocarbon on, the weight of that fluorocarbon takes a nice big sag, but still gives you a direct contact to the lead. It's quite a unique way of setting it up, I guess, that you can't do with normal mono, because normal mono doesn't have the density that fluoro has. And having that sort of sag, that belly in the line out over the weed and to the spot, seemed to suit the situation nicely. But what I've had to do now is change that around and try and do it a little bit differently. Now, whenever there's a barbless hook policy in force, I do tend to keep more of a direct line. I think fishing a totally slack line with a barbless hook is probably just giving the fish too much of a chance, should we say. But the biggest problem I've got here is that the big thick boundary of weed, other than that mirror that took off that crazy bite that we saw earlier, the fish are just dropping back into the weed. So the bites are a little bit more subtle, and in fact the fish that we ended up going out in the boat for, I don't think I've ever seen a bite like it actually. I think probably the rig had travelled a few feet, but the bobbin movement was hardly anything, you know. And I've got it set up on a very sensitive little fulcrum where I've got quite a big heavy bobbin, but the line was probably taking about 30% of the weight of the bobbin and the rest was hanging on the chain. It's a very sensitive little pivot, and that was all I got, just a couple of tiny little knocks. And yeah, that's not good enough. So I've dropped the rod tips down. I've put the bobbin, the full weight of the bobbin is on the line now. And so they're quite big bobbins, not enough to cause me any problems presenting wise, I don't think. I'd rather not have those tighter lines running through the weed that the fish are moving through, but I need a little bit more instant indication. So that's what I've done. And it's gone quiet. Whether the fish are still about, I'm not sure, but it was quiet when we had that 22-pound mirror. So I've been peppering odd baits around the spots. And obviously after losing that fish, I've redone everything and got that back on the money. And yeah, we're good to go. It's late afternoon. We're proper flagging now. We've done like 2 nights with hardly any sleep. So I might get a little bit of lunch and then a little bit of a doze, so I'm fresher for the evening. But loving the session so far. Loving everything about it, apart from that lost fish. But we'll try and cancel that out. First full day is drawing to a close now. And we are 3 fish to the good and 1 lost something and a tench. Feeling, yeah, quite positive about that. And everything's set for the night. The problem that we've had today is, and as I suspected, one of the reasons why I waited for as long as possible to try and get the fish out without asking the management to help me with the boat, was because I just knew that the boat was going to ruin the area. I've seen it many times, you know. You put a boat across an area and it definitely spooks fish. I went out, obviously had to go out, I was as quiet as I could be, but it's had a major impact on this area. And certainly since then, the fish have moved across to the right, to the left, and they're gathered in that corner. And the swim has been pretty much devoid. I've not been getting those little knocks or liners or anything that that I was getting yesterday, and I would almost expect to get more of them because I'm fishing a slightly higher, slightly tauter line. But they're not far away. They're only just across there. And about 20 minutes ago, there was an enormous crash right down close where I've been continuing to drip a few boilies and haven't put a rod there since the 10th yesterday. You just know sometimes when you hear something and it's different gravy to everything else. I mean, whatever that was, it was a monster. So I've quickly brought in one of the rods and just weighed it out, lowered it down there, put 6 or 7 baits around it, and that's set. There's a chance of that doing a fish before dark. We'll see. During the night, the weed is so thick there, I don't think the fish are going to be in close tonight because of the, if you don't know, during the night time, weed growth gives off carbon dioxide, which the fish find uncomfortable, and it will decrease the oxygen saturation in the water column. It's one of the reasons why really weedy lakes don't often fish at night. And come the dawn period, they can be quite lethargic from all of that carbon dioxide that's given off. During the day, it's different. You get sunshine and wind action on the weed, and it's giving off oxygen all day long, and that's why you always see them in there during the day, tenting up and doing their business. So I think when it gets towards dark, I'm going to bring that rod, I'll lift it out, and I'll put it back out on the spot, because that was on the spot that did the very first fish of the trip, that amazing mid-double common this morning. So we're set for that. Now, the fish are very much on that side of the lake at the moment, but we've had that big un show down there, and I just want to get tabs on whether the fish are just starting to creep back over or whether it's just the odd one. Not that I can really move or do anything about it, but just for my confidence. I've tried to get up a couple of these trees and there's a lot of dead branches and so on, so I'm going to get me this special secret edge out of the van, and I'm going to get some eyes in the sky, and I'll tell you exactly what I see. Pretty much ever since I started carp fishing, having eyes in the sky, being able to get up trees has been one of my biggest angling edges. It's one of the biggest angling edges out there. There are a few things to bear in mind. Of course, it does have a danger factor. I have to point that out. I was a lot more nimble when I was 19 than I am now, but I do all right. I get up them, but you do have to be careful. A lot of trees will have dead wood, dead branches. My rule is never have both feet on one branch at the same time. Look for dead branches and avoid them, and stay within your limits. And obviously on some lakes, you're not allowed to do it. And that's where this really comes into its own. This is one of my biggest weapons really. It's caught me so many extra fish that I wouldn't have otherwise caught, because when you think that your eyes are everything, your eyes are your #1 weapon as a carp angler, by being able to get even 6 feet off the ground, you are tripling what you can see into the water. Pair of Polaroids on, a little bit of elevation, and you can see so much more. You can see clear spots polished in the edge, you can see where they've been flanking, you can see tunnels and channels through weed beds, you can all sorts of things. And knowing the routes they're taking, how many fish are in the area, it's all gold dust information which you can put to really good use. You've just got to get that information going in through your eyes. So this guy, I think he cost me about 60 quid or something from an electrical store, funnily enough. Weighs 10 kilos. Collapses down into a little shoulder bag. And it is my extending ladder. How about that? Now with this, not only can you get safely up trees, get elevation, you can also get eyes in the sky on lakes where they say tree climbing is banned, and you can have an edge over everyone else. It is a massive, massive edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up against the tree there, get some eyes down on the spot, see if I can see anything moving. The water is a bit murky where they've been pushing through the weed, so I'm not sure I will, but Let's see what we can see. Well, I can see a little crater in the weed, the same spot that I baited earlier with a few boilies. Looks a little bit coloured up. I'm going to drop a few more baits there. But I've had a good look around the area. I can't see any fish coming through. That just means that they're probably not in close using these tunnels that they were using when it was sunny. You know, we're into the evening now. The fish could have moved out into the deeper water. Last night they were showing more in the deeper water. You know I just put that rod in close where that big one showed, but not seeing any fish move through close at all. So that sounded like one a little bit further down to the left again. Let's hope they come across. The wind is changing to go a little bit sort of east-southeast, which will be pushing in here, which will be massively in our favour for tomorrow. It's not a big wind, but it's quite an open lake, and sometimes the littlest bit of wind, especially when it's a new one, can make a real difference. So I'm going to leave this ladder here for the time being so that we can get up and have a good look around tomorrow when it's bright and sunny. But yeah, if you can get hold of one of these, they really will help you catch a few extra fish every year. Well, carp fishing is the craziest of crazy things, and you know, we all chase big fish, or some of us chase big fish, and I've done it for a long time now, and sometimes you have to do everything you can to get that one you're after. Sometimes you have to catch the whole stock of a lake twice over to get the one you want. Well, the craziest thing has just happened. What I didn't tell you was that the queen of this lake is a massive common called 𝗲𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗃, and it's gone 55 pound in the past. It's a seriously big common carp, very deep bodied, dark, incredible, perfect in every way. So while we were shooting this feature, I thought, you know what, I might plan to do a bit of a campaign on there, because that's a cool fish. I'd like to have a go for that. I just brushed my teeth, got in bed. I was just about to get in bed, and I checked the alarms, checked everything. There was some fish in the area. They started rolling over the spots again and fizzing up where I put the krill. And well, I was just about to take my boots off, and the rod on the main spot just pulled up quick and then dropped down a little bit, and I was out there really quick, and then it was just starting to pull up a little bit again. Lifted into it, managed to get it up without too much drama. It's boiled on the surface, managed to get it over the first bit of weed. And then as I was getting into my chesties, which I need to be able to get out and net a fish, it's a little bit slack where I was putting the chesties on and trying to hold the rod, and it's bored down into the weed, and there it sat locked up for a best part of 5 minutes probably. I couldn't move it, so I just stood there, kept constant pressure. Eventually it kicked and came out, and then I had a proper fight with it, and it's wallowing up and down, and I could feel it against the line, which is always a sign of a big fish. I could feel the length of its tail was hitting the leader, and then it came up and it coughed and gurgled like a flipping pig. You could see these big oil, and I said, this is a really good fish. This is a really good fish. And you're just praying, obviously, at that stage that everything's going to hold and it's going to go in the net. And it did at the first time of asking, and the tail flopped over the draw cord when the head was by the spreader block. That's the best giveaway that you've got a real big fish. And yeah, we've got 𝗲𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗃. Seems crazy to say it. We've only done one night on the lake, and it's only the fourth fish that we've caught out of the lake. But that's how crazy carp fishing is. You know, you could chase a fish like that for years, or you could just have a crazy moment like we've just been blessed with, and just get it not just after no time, but when we've got cameras and we're making a program as well for Carp Academy. It's really, really special. So we've got her out, sorted her out, absolutely nailed in the middle of the bottom lip, and I can't believe it. I absolutely can't believe it. We put her on the mat, we've given her away. They've had a very, very good spawn, clearly, but she's still 46 pounds 6 ounces of immaculate, amazing common carp. So I'm just going to get my head together for a second or two, and we're going to get her out. I'll show her to you guys. Just electrifying. Oh my God. Carp fishing moments like this is like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. So rare, so special. Christ, look at that. Mosquito over here. Wow. Wow. Please be good, girl. Well, that is not only an enormous English common carp, but it's also an absolute stunner. Look at that, perfect in every way. Beautiful shaped tail, perfect mouth, massive wide head, deep bodied. Yes, unbelievable. I want to shout, but I don't want to wake the other anglers, but this is just incredible. Wow. Tilly the carp, pride of San Martin, pride of Bluebell. Well, it's the first cool night of the entire summer, almost getting in the sleeping bag temperature. In fact, when I get back in the bivvy, I'm going to get in that bag instead of laying under the cover. It's a really autumnal feeling dawn. It's just getting light. I caught this carp about 20 minutes ago. It's a beautiful 23-pound zip linear. Just, well, wait till you see it. It's an awesome carp. There we go. A very early morning feeder on the spot. Same rod that did Tilly, and I did the recast straight after we put her back. It went down with an absolute crack. The area's getting really clean now, and topped it up with another 40 or 50 baits. And this zip linear, nice big tail. Doesn't look like he spawned, does it? Proper pleased. So I'm going to slip this guy back, and I'm going to try and get some sleep. Buzzing. Well, post-mortem, what happened? That rarest of things, that most special of events that come along very rarely in your carp fishing life or career anyway, but to get it, the moment recorded while we're filming, is, like I said when I had the fish on the bank, it is like getting lightning in a bottle. It's very rare. I always have a lot of respect for the guys who go out and make fishing films, because once you put cameras into a fishing situation, the fish usually refuse to play ball, or they certainly, it just makes life a lot harder. You know, when you're filming fishing, you aren't fishing the same way as you would when you're just unfettered going about your own angling. You know, you have to stop and do stuff, and you're doing things twice and so on, and so it's never quite the same. So getting good fish action for the camera, trust me, is very tricky. So to all the guys out there who manage it, you know, big respect. But you know, it's come good in an incredible way for us, with numerous beautiful fish, topped by the biggest carp in the lake, which I can't believe, which we caught just on dusk last night, as you saw. And at that point, you know, we had only done one night, so it proves that, you know, you can turn up at the busiest day ticket complex in the country, get on the gate at 7 in the morning, do the legwork, put in the effort, then anything is possible. If that fish hadn't spawned out, it could have been my biggest UK carp. So the stakes are very, very high. You know, I've been doing it a long time, and that's a seriously big fish. So we've been blessed by the carp gods. We've had an incredible session. We've got a few hours left to go. I've redone all of the rods. Obviously, the one that has been doing the fish, I redid after bite time, lapsed through. I've repositioned one in close, and everything's just got a little sprinkle of bait over the top again. There are fish in the area. Momentarily we had a nice wind pushing in here, but it seems to have dropped off. But if that wind comes back, I'd be very confident of another fish today. But it's a special session at a special lake, and yeah, I've loved every minute. amazing. We live in a world of tech, and tech is taking over our lives in just about every area, and I'm probably the least techie person. I mean, I like a bit of tech in my bite alarms, maybe sound box and my camera, but other than that, I'm a bit old-fashioned. And here at Bluebell, you're allowed to use bait boats, and some of the tech I've seen these guys with is truly astounding. Aside from bait boats, you've got guys casting out these round contraptions that tell them the depth and how much weed there is, and so on and so forth, which is fine, and they seem quite popular. But the bait boats are levels. I mean, there's a couple of guys that have got these bait boats that have a winch, and they can just press a button and the winch will unwind the camera all the way down to the bottom so they can see what's there. Just like it make my head hurt just thinking of the mess I'd get in with something like that. But yeah, so in a world of tech, it's worth pointing out that if you don't want to be part of that, or if you can't afford it, or whatever, it just doesn't feel right, you can catch them the old-fashioned way. And all the fish that we've caught on this session have been on the most derelict, antiquated, multi-repaired, on its 9th life boilie rocket and a catapult. You know, I'm sure those 3.5 gram bait boats are very nice, but this proves that you can buck the trend, fish simple, keep it old-fashioned, and still catch the biggest carp in the lake. Mega buzz. Well, that's it. We're done and dusted. We've come to the end of what can only be described as an epic session at Bluebell Lakes on Sand Martin. When we got here, I said to Ian, who's working with me, if we could get a fish, we've got a film. If we get 2 fish, we've got a good film. If we can get 3, we've had a right result. And I'm talking doubles, 20s, you know, it didn't really matter as long as... So that was the outset. So to come away with the number of fish we have and the biggest in the lake is simply mind-blowing. And if I could rewind the clock back and someone would tell me that was going to happen, well, yeah, but that's carp fishing, you know. Sometimes you have to work so hard and so long on campaigns for big fish, and every now and again they come along a little bit easier. But then again, probably to some people watching this, it wouldn't have seemed like it came along easier because of the amount of effort we put into getting into the right place at the right time on the right lake. And you know, what we did was achievable by anybody watching this. I haven't got a secret rig or secret bait. You saw I just used an old catapult and a boilie rocket, but I put in good quality bait with a sharp hook, with a rig that wasn't tangled, where I'd found the fish. And if you endeavour to tick those key boxes every time you go carp angling, your results can't fail but go up. Don't cut corners. And I think of it as an exercise. I call it an exercise in distance reduction. So when we turned up Monday morning on the gate, I had driven 100 miles to get here. So when I got out of bed, between me and the carp I wanted to catch was 100 miles. So I drive here and take off 99.5 of those miles, they're gone. Then it's down to several hundred yards, which you saw us doing the legwork, round and round the different lakes, looking in the different spots, persevering, endurance, looking, determined to find an opportunity. And eventually you get it down to an area. And then you want to get it down to a swim. Then you've got to get it down to a spot. And then you've got to get it down to the length of a hook link. So what starts off as a journey of 100 miles comes down to that. And that's how I always think about it. I'm always trying to reduce the distance between me and the carp. And we've managed to do it, you know, on a level playing field, no favours done, never fished the lake before, no shut swims, no preferential treatment at all. We've just done it exactly in the same way as you guys would have to do it. And so many people say to me, well, you know, I just need to get into a little syndicate because the day tickets are too busy. Yes, they are busy, but day tickets like this are busy for a reason. They've got exceptional quality fish. But there are, as we've proved, even at the height of peak season, opportunities to be found if you're willing to look, put in the legwork and make that effort. And they're really the cornerstones of all my fishing. And as we go forward through Carp Academy, those simple principles will be ones that I will bang on about and try and get you to refocus your minds that it's not about some magic additive or the latest spinning rig or anything. It's actually about what you're willing to do, and not accepting that you're going to fish in hope. I want to fish in expectation of a bite. Life's too short to fish in hope. Some people are down here for a week, some people are doing longer. We've just done 48 hours and I'm shattered, I'm done in. But it's been a brilliant trip, great result. Really hope you enjoyed watching, and stay tuned for the next in session. Check out our homepage, have a look at the success packs, lots and lots of information on there for all you guys who are looking to improve your angling and take things to the next level. In the meantime, I've got a very cold pint of Moretti with my name on it, hot shower, and go and see my lovely family. So see you next time.